All right, here we go. All right, so welcome. How to heal yourself in the aftermath of divorce so that you can create healthy relationships confidently in your new chapter, even if you have trust issues. All right, so I'm Terry. It's good to have you. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of divorced people, so I'm excited to share kind of what I've learned over the years from this. And so my intention is to tell you, I have been through a devastating divorce and really learned that it was that connection to my unhealed abandonment wounds was really the start of my healing journey. And my intention today is to give you three keys on how to heal from your unresolved abandonment wounds and trauma so that you can go forth and create amazing new relationships. And at the end of our class, I'll share how we can work together further. So, the first question I want to start with is, what is your biggest challenge right now? So, if you want to just put that in the chat box for me, I'd love to hear because I tweak my workshops to kind of go with what people are needing. What is your biggest challenge? And after you tell me your biggest challenge, I want to know on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, really doesn't, it's not that big a deal in my life, and 10 being like, oh my God, this is keeping me stuck. It hurts me professionally, it hurts me personally. I can't create good relationships. So, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you feel like your biggest challenge is holding you back? So, I just love to know, like, letting go is a big one. Yeah. How to let go. And an 8. Okay, yeah. 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 Yeah, we're going to talk about that and how, letting go is a process. It is an ongoing process. And here's the other thing, it's a choice. It's a choice to let go. So, anyone else want to share what your biggest challenge is? Maybe it's okay, letting go. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's trusting. Maybe it's feeling like not good enough. Like, okay, so letting go. Hmm. And also letting go can also, the inability to let go can be a byproduct of what I'm going to talk about today, because that was like a big struggle for me. It was holding on a resentment, being able to let go of mistakes, just letting go in general, I feel like is a byproduct of my unhealed childhood wounds that like held me back in ways as well. So for those of you that don't know my story, maybe you've heard my accent already, just a little bit about me. Resentment, yeah, someone's agreeing with me. Yeah, and I kind of all rose into that. All right, I'm just going to check the chat box just to see someone is chatting me. Um, Hang on just a minute. Excuse me, y'all. Thank you for your patience. Sometimes people can't get in. All right. Just letting her know, you're not in the chat room. So all right. So a little bit about me, a little bit about Terry. Okay, there I am. I grew up in rural Virginia, just a poor country girl. My mom was, divorced when I was very, very young. I think I was 3 or 4. And my mom had very little education, so she really didn't have the means, the funds, the education, and so we grew up very poor. A lot of moving around, a lot of instability, and so um, we struggled with having enough to eat. We struggled with where we were going to live. My father, my biological father, who now I realized was probably a functioning alcoholic, pretty much left us right after he divorced my mom. So that was another reason we struggled. And just um, the inconsistent visits. I can name on one hand the amount of times I've seen my biological dad, and those visits were pretty negative. He made some comments. He's always did. So it was just not a really good relationship. at all. And I was sexually abused when I was 6 years old by a family member. So I think all of this instability, insecurity, all that stuff, it just really led to me being unable to develop healthy, intimate relationships with a partner. Now, on the outside, I was high functioning. I was extremely type A personality, extremely high achieving, which is another trait of people who struggle with abandonment wounds. And so that was a big thing, right? So on the outside, I looked like I had it all together. And on the inside, I was a hot mess. And my relationship was needy. I was insecure. I could never be reassured enough that I was loved. My partner loved me. You're smart, you're pretty. None of it was enough for me. And I found myself when my children were young, my two little ones were young, that I struggled with letting go and resentment and being able to I call myself the queen of grudges. And of course, I went through a devastating divorce myself, kind of repeating my mother's cycle. And um, within a span of 6 months of being separated, I lost my husband, I lost my mom, I became homeless. I was hit by a van. I lost all my financial security, all that stuff, on the verge of losing my job because I was such a hot mess. So when I say I understand how devastating divorce can be, I understand. I really, really get it. But I also know that my divorce, I wouldn't trade it for anything because it was the start. Hitting that rock bottom for me was the start of a brand new chapter for me. It was the start of my healing journey. And I learned and grew from that. And now I have created an amazing, amazing life. And here I am. I've traveled the country giving presentations to all kinds of divorce professionals, conferences, all kinds of things. And I have met with some of my favorite spiritual gurus and teachers. I've co-authored 2 women's empowerment books. So if you're looking for tips and insights on how to overcome setbacks, great books that have been, co-authored by amazing women, if you're interested in that as well. And not only that, what I'm most proud of is how I've been able to put my life back together personally. And now I have an amazing, healthy relationship with a sexy, generous, beautiful New York Italian. I love him so much. He's the heart of our family, truly, truly. And we've grown our family, had a baby that I didn't know, that I was like, oh, surprise. And I have put my relationship with my ex-husband. We co-parent. He's remarried, I'm remarried, and the 4 of us co-parent amazingly. And like I said, after this class today, I'm actually doing a podcast on how to co-parent effectively. And I do believe it's so possible. So many exes could get along so much better if just one of them would do the inner work and would look at themselves, and it shifts the entire relationship, the entire co-parenting relationship. His wife is actually one of my best friends. So if I can do it, I know you can do it. I do really believe that it's possible. But what you have to know is that you have to realize is that the real reason you're not finding high quality partners, or you're not developing the relationships that you want to in your life, is because you've got unresolved abandonment issues that are impairing your confidence, your dating life, your intimate relationships, your personal relationships, familial relationships, and ultimately your peace and your freedom. That is ultimately what has happened. And when you resolve those abandonment issues within yourself, all of those other pieces resolve themselves and come into place. You start to develop better relationships because people respond to you differently because you are showing up differently in your relationships. Okay, so everyone has kind of typed in here that what you want to talk about is letting go, resentment. Before I move on, I know we've had another participant join us. If you want to write in the chat box, if possible, what is your biggest issue, and how it impacts you on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being like, yeah, it didn't really impact me, to like 10 being, oh my gosh, it's devastating. It holds me back in my life. I can't, it affects my work. It affects my personal lives. If you're able to get on our chat box and just let me know what your biggest issue is and how it's impacting you, then I can address it throughout our class today. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about the 3 keys today that are holding you back and how you can overcome them. So one of the symptoms that happens post-divorce, and when you're trying to enter dating world and you're trying to create new relationships, but what holds most people back is being chronically lonely and this feeling of like a deep sadness. And it's like most people can't even like pinpoint what this sadness is really about. It's just this feeling of being chronically lonely. And these feelings, these triggers, these judgments, these negative emotions, the good news is it's an indicator of where you still need to heal. And if you understand that the negative emotion is there to teach you something and it serves a purpose in your healing, it will help you to heal faster. And just embracing and looking within that loneliness is really an integral part of a faster recovery. So I want to talk about the reason why you're chronically lonely and kind of share my story about being lonely. The reason why we're chronically lonely is because we have these abandonment wounds. And when I talk about abandonment wounds, it doesn't necessarily mean that a parent physically up and left you. It means that a parent had unrealistic expectations of you, or there was a dysfunctional parent relationship that was happening, or that you felt that there was an agenda with your parents, or that their love was conditional. For me, I did have an alcoholic biological father who was unable to give me that reassurance and give me that love. You know, what few instances I did meet my biological father, he was critical, talked about I was ugly or played tricks on me or told me I was fat. So it left me with this like feeling of unworthiness. And for me, my chronic loneliness, when I surrendered to that, remember when I told you I was hit by that van, I lost my mom, probably the healthiest thing that I did during my separation and during my divorce was like just realizing that I needed to just sit with this loneliness, because I recognized that my loneliness, I was lonely when I was married. I was constantly needing reassurance, constantly needing my husband to be with me all the time. It was really lonely. And I'm telling you, this was not easy for me because I wanted to go out and go to clubs, go meet people. You know, I'm sure a lot of people want to get on those apps and get the attention, get on those dating apps and really feel like, hey, someone likes me, someone thinks I'm pretty, someone thinks I'm attractive, someone thinks I'm great, right? Someone thinks I'm smart. But for me, kind of recognizing that during my divorce was really like the best thing that I could have done, because I sat with that loneliness. I was crying every night, crying myself to sleep in this strange woman's basement, because like I said, I was homeless at the time and someone took me in, and I was just crying myself to sleep, holding my babies. And that was the healthiest thing that I could have done, is just sat with that loneliness. Because when I did, I realized that that loneliness was really tied to my father leaving us and abandoning me. And I really made the connection then that, God, if my own father doesn't love me, I must be pretty damn unlovable. And that is kind of that feeling that I had, this deep sense of sadness all through my life. And I was looking for men to fill that void. And I see that with so many people who are looking for a woman to make them feel valued because their mother was emotionally unavailable or had mental health issues, right? Or men who look to women, controlling women in particular, because their own parents didn't really accept them or value them, or they're always looking for approval from someone else, or looking for that validation for someone else to make them feel good about themselves. And that was definitely me. And that's what I see. And men in particular tend to go out after divorce and get into relationships very quickly and develop those relationships quickly because you're chronically lonely. And the thing that I see with women, I'm going to skip around a little bit here, is that women tend to do the opposite, and they become very wary of relationships post-divorce. This is a generalization, by the way. Not everyone does this. Because I do have a lot of men that say, oh, my ex-wife jumped right into a relationship, right? That's what would have happened to me if I hadn't just taken some time and recognized, whoa, girl, you got an issue, you got a problem. Like, you're trying to solve this with men. So, a lot of women, though, tend to do the opposite, where they don't trust. They constantly feel anxious. You feel like a failure. You feel like everything's all your fault, or you feel like you're not good enough, or you're failing no matter what you do. And what I see with people who don't trust themselves, and, it's kind of an interesting cycle, is that you don't have healthy boundaries. You're a people pleaser, or, as Dr. Glover calls this, the nice guy syndrome. You're full of resentment and anger because you're always putting people above yourself. You're always putting other people's needs above your own, and putting your own needs and desires on the back burner. And it feeds into a cycle, because then people tend to take advantage of you, manipulate you, and you don't trust them because you can't trust yourself, and you don't have good boundaries. So the thing is, too, when you don't trust yourself, you're more susceptible to toxic people, because manipulative people pick up on these cues, and they pick up on people who don't have strong boundaries very quickly, and they tend to take advantage of that. And so it's really important to really work on yourself when you don't trust yourself, because you're more susceptible to getting involved in toxic relationships. And again, it devalues your self-esteem, devalues your self-worth, and it's a cycle. It repeats over and over and over, and it tends to happen over and over and over. Now, why is that? How do you trust yourself again? So the reason why you're unable to trust yourself is because, again, like I said, it's those unmet abandonment wounds. It's an unmet emotional need. You probably had an emotionally unavailable parent. Or I've had several clients that have come to me very recently who've had parents who've had an agenda. They almost have this agenda, and that's a very toxic thing for children to grow up in, to have a parent who has their own agenda versus like meeting their kids' needs. Or they have parents who have their own traumas, who've had generational trauma, that are trying their best to parent their kids, but they just don't know how, who suffer from mental illness or who have alcoholism. So there's a lot of volatility in their upbringing. Or if you were a military brat and you just have to go from place to place to place to place, where you just don't have that stability and that security. So that's also a big reason a lot of people they haven't developed trust, is because your nervous system has gotten out of whack. You don't feel safe and secure. You've become very dysregulated. So it's really important that you learn how to regulate yourself, how to make yourself feel safe and secure, how to learn how to trust yourself again and give yourself the validation and the self-worth that you're seeking from other people. Another thing that I see with so many people that they don't know how to trust themselves is because their own intuition, needs, and desires were suppressed as a child. I have a client, Julie, and she grew up in a very conservative, religious kind of upbringing where, children should be seen and not heard. And so guess what her big trigger is? Guess what her big struggle is in her relationships. It's a struggle to feel heard. And she doesn't trust herself because she's in this dynamic of like being triggered all the time and always feeling unsafe and unheard and not feeling really secure in her relationships. So after working with me, I've taught her how to heal that abandonment wound and how to reparent herself so that she feels heard. Those are her words, where she feels heard and feels she matters in the relationship she's in. So she's showing up authentically in her relationships. And here's the thing, y'all, I know we're only talking kind of about dating and intimate relationships, but these things domino into our interpersonal relationships in ways that I can't even begin to tell you. Because of these inability to trust herself kind of relationships, Julie kind of professionally, it would spill out into her professional life where she was kind of passive aggressive, and her supervisor had even said something to her. Now she walks authentically in herself. She's no longer triggered by patience and things like that. Her supervisor has noticed how like more confident she is, how secure she is. So these things don't just like manifest just interpersonally, but like I see my clients when they work on the stuff in their relationships, man, I'm going to tell you about Bob in a minute, but like their professional lives really blossom and become so much better. It's really, really amazing. And you know what? If you've also grown up in like a dysfunctional household, or you were in a toxic relationship, an unhealthy relationship for a long time that caused you to walk on eggshells, you really have a dysregulated nervous system because you've suppressed so much of yourself trying to keep the peace. You haven't learned how to trust yourself. You haven't learned how to feel safe and secure in your own self in a healthy relationship. So that takes its toll on you too. So I want to talk about Bob in my next symptom of abandonment wounds, and symptom of the fact that you've got abandonment wounds is that you're triggered by the ex, or maybe you just are triggered by in relationships. You're not sure. When Bob came to me, he was highly triggered by a high conflict ex, but he was really struggling to know if the relationship he was in currently was a good one. He was so unsure of himself, right? He again, he didn't trust himself to even realize, is this a healthy relationship? Because I've been so triggered for so long and have suppressed my needs for so long, I don't even know anymore. If your ex triggers you, or someone in your life triggers the hell out of you, their behavior is exposing a wound in you that needs to be healed. And listen, I have in the past kind of talked about triggers in kind of a negative way. And now I'm like looking at it as like, wow, this is something to embrace. This is a trigger, something to honor, because this is an amazing feat where this is like the key to your healing. Your ex is the key to your healing. That person, that boss that like irritates the hell out of you, they're the key to your freedom. Because as long as you allow them to trigger you, you're an emotional prisoner to them, and you're never going to be at peace. If someone can mess with you that easily, I mean, that's like a bad sign, because you're never going to find peace. You're never going to be truly happy. Someone holds the key to your freedom. You know, my favorite guru is he's Peter Crone, and he talks about how life will present you with people and events to reveal where you still need healing. So that's why honoring these triggers is like, it's a good thing, okay? Because it's like, oh, this is something I can just look at and become aware of and learn how to heal, because it's the key to my freedom. When you continue to repeat these toxic relationships without healing that underlying wound, that's the thing, you'll continue to attract those same partners that will continue to teach you these lessons, right? Because you're going to the universe tends to send you those messages over and over and over until we learn. Yeah, my enemy is the answer to my solution. Absolutely. Yes, yes. And I listen, I've been there, done that, done the inner work. I know it's not easy. What I'm asking you to do is not easy. It is simple. That's the good thing. It's simple, but it's not easy. And it is painful. And it's but on the other side of that pain is that peace you're seeking. So I love it. I mean, it really is, if you kind of shift your mindset around it. I had parents who wanted me to become a doctor. So now I'm reading our chat. Yes. Oh my gosh. So this leads me to Bob. Okay. So Bob, like I said, when he came to me, he was triggered to hell by a high conflict ex, right? And he was in a monogamous, committed relationship, but he just second guessed the hell out of himself. And guess what? His parents had an agenda. His dad, in particular, needed him to be a certain way. He was a very emotionally distant man. Nothing was ever good enough for this man. And I've seen this a time and time and time and time again, where I've had clients. I had another one. Chris came to me and he said, I don't have abandonment wounds. Terry, I don't know what you're talking about. I had great loving parents. They love me. Oh my God. They had such an agenda with him. Their love was so conditional. When he didn't do what they wanted them to do, they withheld affection, they withheld attention. They also had underlying resentment because he was kind of a surprise baby, if you will. And they totally had an agenda. And I kind of showed him how that abandonment wound and connected it to how it was manifesting in his negative relationship patterns with his ex-wife. And by identifying that and healing that, now he's gone on, he's happily divorced, he's happily in a really fun, healthy relationship where she doesn't have an agenda for him. They're bringing whole versions of themselves. And again, he was an event planner in the middle of COVID. And when he got his mojo back, he's back to planning events and doing really great. It is really, really amazing. Yes, yes. So it does make a difference how your parents show up with you, and how if they don't give you that unconditional acceptance, unconditional love, it is going to affect how you show up in your adult relationships, because our adult relationships are mirrors of the void within us. We are looking for our partner to fill that void. And what attracts us to them initially ends up kind of being our triggers later on. Like I was telling you with Julie, what attracted her initially was her gregarious, conversationalist husband. And that's a trigger for her, because now she feels like she's not heard, because he's gregarious and he's the conversationalist and he does all the talking. And so there's this energetic dynamic that we had to break. I showed her how to break through reparenting herself, where she learned that, oh, I can fill my void and stop expecting him to fill that void and to make me feel good about myself. And when you fill that void, you can bring two whole, emotionally available people to a relationship, and you're not looking for that subconscious need from your partner or subconscious agenda that you're expecting from your partner, and it keeps you at a distance. And again, she, because she felt like he was trying to control the conversation, subconsciously, she was trying to control the conversation. So they were locked in this energetic battle that was ruining their marriage. And just by her filling her own void, right, and doing the inner work, she can show up fully aligned in her relationships. And I mean, it spills into our children too. I know that because I'm a mom and a stepmom of 5. So I believe our children are our biggest teachers. Oh, Lord, help us, right? They trigger the hell out of us. And, sometimes we have to look within and go, okay, what am I doing here? And I need to just allow my child to be who they are and love them as they are and stop expecting them to be something different than who they are. So, and here's the thing, when you blame others and you think it's their fault or the situation's fault, if only this would change, if only that person would change, I'd be happy, because that was the script in my head before I had, done all the process that I'd done. Man, I was a very miserable person, and I was giving up my power and I was giving up my ability to grow. Now, when something happens to me or a situation isn't the way I want it to be or prefer it to be, I look at it as an opportunity to grow and use my tools and use my exercises to become more at peace, become more content. It is really, really freeing when you are a different person. So those are the three keys, right? So many of us, I know a lot of you guys had mentioned the resentment, right? The resentment is a byproduct of that people pleasing and of that putting yourself last and expecting others to be a certain way and having an agenda with others. People pleasing is really energetically a manipulation because you're expecting something from someone else. And when you do that, right, you're setting up this agenda from them and not allowing the other person to be who they are and not allowing the true love that you could have. And another thing is letting go of these three, things: the trust, learning how to trust yourself, learning how to let go and be fully aligned and love yourself unconditionally and accept yourself unconditionally. You can trust yourself. You can, yes. So someone says, I'm hugely guilty of people pleasing. Absolutely. A lot of us are guilty of that because we're filling that void. We're doing it subconsciously. We're not even aware. And it's called, with men, I call it the nice guy syndrome. With women, there tends to be a lot of people pleasing. And there's a lot more conditioning for women because our society also thrusts that upon women as well. Be a nice girl, get along, all that kind of stuff. So it's even harder for women, but nice guys tend to do this particularly with their intimate relationships with women, and they tend to pick really strong, controlling women, those nice guys. It's the pattern that tends to crop up. Now, here's the thing. I wish that I could give you a pill and $5 a pill, $10 a pill. Here you go, take this pill and it'll resolve you can let go, you can be at peace, you no longer have resentment, you're no longer a people pleaser, you feel trusting and confident, but that's not how it works, It is a multifaceted process though. In my coaching program, in my Finding Peace program, I teach a systematic, multifaceted approach that addresses all these facets: the nervous system, the feeling those abandonment wounds, teaching you how to have the self-worth so that you can create the healthy boundaries and no longer be a people pleaser. So you must do the inner work and have a multifaceted, systematic process so that you can heal all the facets. That's why so many people come to me after traditional talk therapy leaves them stuck. It's great to talk about these things. Now, what the hell do I do about it, Terry? Like, what do I do? What's the how? How, right? So I'm an action taker, and that's who I am. So, I tend to draw people who are ready and willing to do intentional, actionable exercises in my programs that will quickly make a big difference in your life. And you want to be happier in all of your relationships, professionally, personally, the family relationships. I can't tell you how much closer I am to my sisters and my stepdad because of the inner work. And if you're an action taker and you are ready to invest in a program that works, because look, I don't have a magic pill. There isn't a magic pill. But you don't want to waste precious time. You just don't know how. Look, I want you to it's great that we talk about this in a group setting, and I can give you 1,000 client, breakthroughs and testimonials, but I really would urge you to get on my breakthrough phone call where you're going to get the 3 keys to finally feel at peace, because this is where you are going to really feel the effects of what I do. Because in a group, I can only tell you so much, but when we get on this phone call, I'm like a surgeon. I'm a precise surgeon that's going to like really give you the diagnosis for what is ailing you in particular. What is the exact root of your abandonment wound, your trauma, right? That's holding you back, and give you the exact steps of how it's holding you back, and give you the prescription, if you will, a strategic plan that you need to heal. Now, look, this is not going to be a hard sales call. I'm not into that. I'm into helping people. And I guarantee you, when you get on this phone call, you're going to walk away with so much insight into your own upbringing and into how it's manifested in your relationships. You're going to be shocked. Everybody on that first call are shocked, say, yes, sign me up for your program. Not that you have to, but they're shocked at how much insight and how much value that they get after talking with me, because I'm going to put the pieces of the puzzle together for you and give you the prescription for what you need to move on quickly. And you can stop feeling lonely, and you can let go of all those negative feelings so you can feel secure and confident in all your relationships. You don't have to spend years like I did and go through 2 divorces like I did. You can get the plan that you need so you can heal quickly, so that you can understand that you are lovable, you are worthy, you are valuable, and so that you can create those firm boundaries in all of your relationships. And then if it feels like a good fit, then we'll talk about the right program for you. And like I said, I can't do this here in a group setting because it's different for everybody. It's an individual, personalized program for each person. And once we do that, if it feels like a good fit, great. If it doesn't, yeah, no big deal. I got thick skin, doesn't matter. I'm just here to help you understand what is holding you back, and the strategic steps that you need to let go of it, and to feel really good and confident. I guarantee you guys, I love these phone calls. This is probably my favorite part of anything that I ever do, is helping people on these one-on-one calls, so that I can get you to where you want to be, get you a vision for that future, help you understand that your dreams are attainable. It's so possible. It's so possible. So I'm putting my calendar link here, right here in the chat box, so you can just copy and paste it. If you need it afterwards, y'all know how accessible I am. You can just, pop me a Facebook message or pop me an email, whatever. I'm always around. I'm always here. Because I really want to talk to you one-on-one and get that plan for you. You just set aside 45 minutes. We're going to talk about what it takes for you, and my prescription for you to find that inner peace moving forward. I promise it's going to be the best 45 minutes of your life. I guarantee it. So, all right. So I'm going to pop that in there one more time. And then I finished on time. So all you got to do, y'all, you can click on it right here in the Zoom link, or, like I said, just reach out to me. I would love to know. I've got about 1 minute before I head off to this podcast thing that I've got to go record. Would love to know, what is your biggest takeaway from today in the chat box? What's your biggest takeaway?
Jerry, can you hear me?